Hello everybody, welcome to GameGuru Classic and GameGuru Max broadcast number 125. Now, anyone who's regular to these broadcasts will know the form by now. You get an opportunity, if you're joining us live, to ask some questions. All I ask is that you put in a question mark at the end of the live chat. You can't see it on my screen, but I can see it on another screen. And anyone who gets in their question early enough has an opportunity to have it answered verbally. Don't worry, there'll be more opportunities to answer some more questions in the Discord that goes on a little bit later, but that's beside the point. I just want you to know that you can ask your questions right now. The broadcast is divided into two sections. There's a demo section and then there's a Q&A. So that's where all your lovely answers will appear in the second half. The first half, I get to ramble on about some of the stuff that's been going on in GameGuru Classic and GameGuru Wasteland recently, and I helped myself along by writing a few notes down so I have some semblance of order. I normally do a sound check, but I've been looking at this little volume control. It all looks pretty good, but I am going to switch on my second screen the live chat just in case. I do get a lot of screams about Lee, we cannot hear you. I know it's 125 broadcasts in. I should know how to operate a microphone by now. But I am not kidding. Skype has been playing silly buggers and just randomly deciding to change my preferred preference of microphone to an inanimate object. So yeah, I'm not taking anything for granted. But thank you for joining in. Let's dive straight into the first part, which of course is about GameGuru Classic. And anyone who's been tuning into our news feed, I'll just click onto the link so you can see what I'm talking about. We released our final update of 2022, the December update. We promised at the start of the year that we'd release 4 comprehensive updates to fix as many bugs as we can get our grubby little hands on. We beat that. I think we did like 5 or 6 updates this year. And I think this, you can tell me if I'm wrong, December update, at least on the, what would it be now, the 6th of December would be the first time we released an update that literally fixed every single, in quotes, reported bug. Bang. Fixed, confirmed, released in an update. GameGuru Classic, we started selling it way back in, I think it's 2015. Yeah. So that's a 7-year-old product on launch, and we finally fixed all the bugs 7 years later. But of course, in those 7 years, we've released lots of new features as well. We created a rod for our back by every time we released a feature, a couple of bugs got dragged along for the ride. So we're finally able to pat ourselves on the back at the end of 2022 that at least for one day, every single reported bug by the entire community was fixed for GameGuru Classic. We're pretty proud of that. However, the day after, the 7th, a couple of people said, I've got a bug and you have not fixed it. Fine. Let me show you the 2 bugs that were reported. Well, mentioned on Steam, I should say. It wasn't really put into enough information that we could act on it. So this is GameGuru Classic. I'm actually going a little bit off script, but I just want to demonstrate the bug in question so I can disprove them, because here's the problem. I cannot reproduce the bug. There are 2 bugs. One of them was you drop in a weapon and then you set simulated sky and it doesn't fire. So I did those 2 things and it worked fine. And the second one is if you drop in a third-person character that shoots, he slides around and doesn't fire. I suspect maybe a bit of a refresh, back up, delete, and then install from scratch. But I'm just going to go through it in person. It's good then, I can actually point to it and say, so here we go, we've got Shotgun Soldier. Anyone who knows GameGuru Classic, we've got Start Marker and you drop a character on it, boom, you've instantly activated third-person mode. So if I go and do test level, test game, I can walk, so I'm not sliding around, and then when I shoot, I do serious damage, well, no damage at all, in fact, to the grass. So that's third person mode. I can shoot and I can walk, no sliding around, happy days. The second bug that was reported is that in simulated sky none of the weapons work. So I'm going to select Uzi, which is one of our stock weapons. Go back into test game. And they want me to set sky type to simulated sky. Again, serious damage with Uzi. So I suppose it's a bit of a lesson for those who just got the product recently and it's like, oh, there's a bug and this is terrible and we should all hate everyone. No, just provide a step-by-step with enough detail that you don't get what I just did then. I just did the shortest route to test those two things and it worked. Not saying you don't have a bug, you probably do. But we need the intermediate steps. I need the exact steps that you followed to see the bug. Because when I try to do it really quickly, and remember, I don't have all day to try a million permutations. What I have time for is to go through one list once, see the bug and confirm it, and then eventually fix it. So there you go. That's what we're looking for. So the best way to do that is create an issue on our issues board and pile in the detail. Make sure that there is no room for maneuver. I absolutely reproduce it. And just as you saw with the December update, we will fix it. GameGuru Classic is the place to have things fixed for you. Okay, so enough of that. Let's move on to GameGuru Max. Okay. So GameGuru Max, there's a couple of things I want to mention. Last week's broadcast upset a few people by saying that DX12 is taking longer than we anticipated to implement, so we've moved after DX11, and instant outcry. How dare you backpedal? But it's a good idea, and we went with it because the internal team knows best. And now we have a DX11 version of the experimental build, plus every single bug fix since the last stable version of DX11. The only thing that's not in the current experimental build is any work we did and to push in the direction of DX12. Now that DX12 is bad, it's just there's a lot of work in there. And just so we got to 95%, and that was great, turns out the last 5% was going to take an indefinite or an indeterminate amount of time. And you want some updates, you want some more features, you want to play with some stuff over Christmas. Well, you weren't going to get that. Well, certain people weren't going to get that, especially if it was an AMD card user. And all of the latest stuff that we were releasing would crash on you. So we have gone to DX11.1. We've added all of the bug fixes since that date. We've done some minimal testing. We're quite happy with it so far. Nothing we've tried has failed. And so we're looking to release an update later this week with all of that juicy goodness in. The only thing you're not going to get is DX12. But let's face it, we didn't find this performance improvement when we switched from 11 to 12. Zero performance. In fact, some of the shadow rendering actually slowed down in DX12. And on top of that, we introduced instability. So it wasn't really a good move to do it sort of like halfway, even though technically 95%. It wasn't all the way. And until we get that full job done, you don't want to be suffering from the inadequacies of an interim build. So going back to DX11 with all the cool features and bug fixes is definitely the right way to go. So check out build at the end of this week. You'll find out about it if you just switch auto updates on Steam. You'll get it. Just switch to EXP, experimental build. If you don't know what that is, just go onto the socials. There is a little passcode that you can enter into Steam and you get access to the experimental build. So go check that out. But believe it or not, that is not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about, let me just close down Classic. I want to bring up the aforementioned DirectX 11.1 with all of the stuff that's been done relating to particles, physics, building editor, stuff that I'm going to hint at next. But what I want to show you is another. Remember last week I showed you the Wasteland weapons, which I was pretty pleased with. Again, I wish I could just paste in some auto disclaimer so I don't have to keep repeating myself, but I think it's worth repeating until the message gets through to literally everyone. We haven't created these weapons. Third-party contributors have. It is their work. It is their product. All we're doing is selling it for them. And Wasteland Weapons is great. Go check it out. And in the same context, we're also going to talk about the Wasteland Workshop. And that's what this one is. I've laid it up in a real temporary project because I just wanted to test all the assets. But you get a little bit of bonus with this one. Wasteland Workshop not only includes, and I'll be able to run around all this once test game has finished calculating some nav mesh stuff. So you get some, see, AMD software, adrenaline, not crashing. AMD is happy. You got some rusted out buildings, but this is really what you're looking at. You've got cranes, you've got rusty old tarpaulin signs, the end of the nuclear winter, and inside a proper workshop with little pin boards, work tables, you've got spanners, crowbars, vices, welding masks, welders, tyres. The list goes on. In fact, there is a Steam page which goes into lots of detail. The reason I like this one is not only have we given you scenery, so things you can drop in, static stuff, you've also got this, and I had to put a little flashy light because it wasn't obvious immediately when you entered the scene. We've weaponized 4 of the tools. So you've got a spanner that you can weaponize, got a screwdriver you can weaponize, hammer that you can weaponize, and finally crowbar. Now, this weapon is rubbish. It takes so long to hit anything. You're going to get mauled. But it's there. You've got 2 different actions. So all the animations are in. But here's the thing. You can drop those tools, I should say, into a regular workshop such as this. But then if your game requires it, then those get weaponized. These are all static, which put them all in static so they're nice and fast. But yeah, you could actually put in a tool. Your player can discover it, pick it up, and maybe that's one of your first weapons before you go on to proper weaponry. So this is the Wasteland Workshop. It's a combination of mainly static scenery and the apocalyptic theme. So think of end of world, but humanity struggling to carry on. But we thought because we have a new weapon system and it's not that much of a stretch and the artist was willing, we weaponized the first 4 tools. We didn't weaponize all the tools. There's a lot of tools in this pack, but we thought we'd start the process, and maybe the artist will like the idea that, you know, weaponizing is so easy, and then weaponize the rest of this garage so you can literally pick up everything and use it as a weapon. We have a lot of animations that not only the TGC own, but we're quite happy to give them to third-party artists. So whether it's like a stabby weaponization, or a clobber, or a swipe, those animations we're quite happy to distribute to any artist who wants to weaponize things like sticks and bricks and whatever it happens to be. So currently the plan is that this goes out on a Friday, along with the Wasteland Weapons DLC. I know it's unprecedented, 2 DLCs on the same day, but it felt rather appropriate that we do a lot of DLCs, certainly in Classic, but I think this is the first time that 2 DLCs work so well together. So obviously the Wasteland Weapons, go check out last week's broadcast, is more of the inventive apocalyptic human who's really thought about weapons, and these are just the stuff that have lying around and you can pick up and maybe defend yourself for a little bit. But together the 2 DLCs could create a lot of content if apocalyptic scenarios is one of your ideas for a game you might have that you might want to create. So that's what's going out this week, and you may have spotted it, and I'm not going to be coy about it, is this 3rd one. All you're reading on my screen now is Off-World Station Bo. And that little screen. And I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to leave it as a teaser. Because if everything goes well, and there's still a lot of work that we need to do on top of the DX11 version, And I won't mention the features just in case we really run out of time and we can't implement them, is the third DLC before Christmas. So if you're an AMD user and you've been waiting for stability, before TGC breaks for Christmas, you're going to get an update that works and 3 new DLCs to choose from if you so wish and it fits in with your game idea. But we're really excited about this last 3. They're really high quality. Really excited that they're using some of the newer features of GameGuru Max. And the off-world station, yeah. Tune in next Wednesday. I think you'll be impressed. I certainly have been. Okay, that's enough rambling from me. I think that's it for the demo section. Let's squirrel over to the live chat and see if there's any worthy questions. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we're eventually going to go into Discord for some very informal chat, but this is what we would call the formal chat. This is where you have formal questions and I have to provide formal answers. And we start at the top. I did ask Zach if he wanted to attend this one. As we get closer to Christmas, I have the feeling of Christmas spirit. And I said, Zach, you know, I'll leave it up to you. Do you want to tune in later on or not? It's entirely up to you. Looks like he has joined in, so thank you very much, Zach. Maybe he has been collecting the questions as well. So what I'm going to do is scroll right to the bottom. Yeah. So Zach is fulfilling his role as gathering up all the questions to answers. Sorry, questions that didn't get answers. Now I get to answer only the questions that haven't been attended. And we start with Hey Lee. And that says, what about multiplayer, Python, and more improvements to GameGuru Classic aside bug fixing? So bug fixing is not enough, is it? Yeah, there are no plans, short-term plans I should say, and certainly no release dates for a Python version of GameGuru Classic. We do have some Photon stuff that's in the GitHub. It's called Photon. It does all of the things that the Steam multiplayer API does, and a few more things actually, and some stuff that relates to some extra server work. But there are no plans to formalize that and put it out into the world yet. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of plates spinning. Remember, we are now developing both Classic and Max, and so things have to take their course and in the right order. So yeah, there's no release date on multiplayer. Absolutely no way we're going to release a Python version of GameGuru Classic. And we still keep bug fixing as the top priority for GameGuru Classic. We said that before and we think it's a good idea and we'll keep doing it. Next question came in, is there expected release date of the RPG elements? No actual release date. We are working on them right now, both back end and front end. And builds that you're going to get in the next weeks will contain some of those things. But when we actually sit back and say we have finished RPG elements, I can say this much: it won't be this year, and it won't be extremely early next year. But we are aiming to get a version 1 of all the RPG essentials complete early next year. I don't have any release dates on that. Questions. Another question from Zach from earlier probably. Is there any plans to sell scripts behaviours on Steam? No. TGC have absolutely no plans to sell scripts, have absolutely no plans to sell behaviours. Remember the particle editor situation where the Steam raised a bit of an outcry? How do we sell, in quotes, functionality during early access? Surely you add all functionality as part of early access before you actually finish your product. Scripts and behaviours fall into that category. Even if a third party came along with 200 scripts and says, can I be an official DLC and sell them? We couldn't do it. Why? Because we're going to get lynched by the Steam community for selling functionality. Yes, we have nothing to do with it, but it's the perception thing, the expectation thing. So it's highly unlikely we're going to have a dedicated DLC for just scripts and behaviours. And in fact, we've got so many already and so many on the way. I don't think we need a DLC for scripts and behaviours. Let's finish a perfectly decent game maker before we start selling additional game logic, yeah? Okay, scrolling down for looking for the next question mark. It's the only way I can get through things quickly. This is from Dark Pickles 666. Last week you said that there were plans for tutorials on importing your own weapons, hands, character parts into Character Creator, etc. Is there any ETA on when the tutorial will start? To be done. We already have a weapons guide, no tutorials. Just for clarity, tutorials as in tutorial videos. No plans for releasing those anytime soon, but we are expanding the guides. What is the guides? The guides are either a PDF or a doc file that goes into some detail on how to produce your own weapons and how to produce your own character parts so you can create your own Character Creator entire bodies. And how do I speak to that with confidence? Because one of the artists found our guide and literally went 90% of the way from modelling a weapon all the way through to actually having a weapon. And that's the Wasteland Weapons DLC. TGC had very little to do with that. The artist just used the guide. All they needed was a little bit of help at the end, and that was just some simple stuff, and we're happy to answer those specific questions to anyone. But the guide was sufficient. The guide that exists right now, you can use with some technical artistry to create your own weapons. I would say, however, that the Character Creator body parts thing is a little bit further behind. There hasn't been an artist yet who's come forward with a big set of brand new body parts that could be another official DLC. But we'll continue to work on that guide, probably in concert with artists who want to create a DLC with character body parts. I think that's the best way, because the guide is then very focused on a single aim to start from nothing and actually get to the end result where you can start dropping these things into your level. So looking for the next question, a couple of ones posted in from Raphael Kant. You already scripts on the TGC store, 2 question marks. TGC does not own the TGC store. I think you mean the asset store. That is actually run by Jason, completely independent of the game creators. We have no affiliation whatsoever. And yes, there are scripts and behaviours that are on sale over there. And the asset store does have a max section. You can filter for max only content. But we don't take any slice of that particular pie. And any grievances you might have about selling GameGuru Max functionality on the asset store, please take it up with the store owner. Thank you very much. Okay, looking for the next question mark. Where can I find the guide? That's a great question, actually. You'll find it in... Go to the Max root folder, then normally you go into files, you know, to look at all the media. Don't. There's another folder called docs, and another folder called guides, and inside there is all the different guides. Well, it's all the different folders for all the different categories. Pick the category you're interested in, go into that folder, and there is the guide. But yeah, if you didn't know to look in the root folder, maybe you would never know. And do let us know if you want us to drop those into the help menu. It's a 5-minute job, and it might help you a lot just to go into the help menu, click a button, and read up. But I think you only need to read the guides once before you know exactly what's going on. And you will have burning questions having finished reading the guide. Please let us know. Every question will turn into another section for the guide, so the next person who reads the guide doesn't have to ask the same question. Okay, last question so far in the live chat. Was there a flashlight object added to pick up a flashlight as a usable item? No, there is no flashlight model right now. Like an actual, what we call in the UK, a torch that you can pick up and then shine around. We don't have it. There's no model for a flashlight. So there's nothing you can pick up and then suddenly activate the... You do have logic which can switch on and off the functionality of the F key, switching the flashlight on and off. But yeah, we don't have a model. It'd be great if someone could knock up a model like really quick and send it to us free. We'll add it in the very next build, and we'll tie it in with the script behaviours for flashlight on and off. We'd much appreciate that. Another question's coming in. Last question from Loretta: is VR coming soon? Yeah, it's one of the 2 things that are really burning our eyes out right now. There's 2 things that are glaringly missing: RPG and VR. RPG is well underway. VR is already there in the back end. We're just not exposed it in the front end. So that's something else that we really want to bring out sooner rather than later. But as you can imagine, with the recent DX12 distraction, all that kind of got a little bit delayed. But now we've got a nice solid foundation again. Yeah, we're back on track with getting RPGs so you can do all the kind of things you'd expect in an RPG game. And of course, my personal pet favourite, virtual reality. Because I got like so many headsets, I just want to play GameGuru Max levels with all of them. So keep an eye out for that. RPG is taking priority right now, but if you keep watching the updates, eventually you'll see a little sneak peek of some developer mode, back-end VR functionality. And if you've got VR, you'll have a whale of a time. So I'm just checking the clock. We're 26 minutes in. That's pretty good for demos plus questions. As I mentioned before, I'm going to put in another 10 minutes of questions and answers on Discord, which is a nice chilled casual area. If you want to know where that is, you don't have to go hunting on Google. In this YouTube live broadcast, if you look at the description, there's a link to Discord. Just click that and you'll join all the veterans. We've done this Discord thing for about 4, 5, 6 weeks, 7 more maybe. And it's always the veterans, the ones who've been in GameGuru land for years. But everybody is welcome, and your questions, there is no question so silly that doesn't have a perfectly ordinary answer for it. So I invite anyone who's got the time, 10 more minutes perhaps, 15, and go check out Discord and we'll carry on the conversation there. But for this broadcast, for this Wednesday at 7 PM GMT, we're pretty much out of material. So thank you very much for your questions and your attention. I hope you enjoyed it. After 27 minutes, I hope my microphone was working. If all else fails, I'll speak to you all next Wednesday at 7 PM GMT, which, just a quick glance at my calendar, that may be the last broadcast of the year. TDC like to enjoy quite long Christmas holidays, and then we're back, I think it's the 3rd of January. There may be another one, maybe it's a Christmas ramble, but certainly one more properly official broadcast next Wednesday at 7 PM GMT. So if you do have time and you're not too full of cake, please join us for that. So until next Wednesday, I shall say thank you very much and goodbye.